Hey, welcome back to Bobb-z Callahan's Word of Advice. And in this video today, I would like to talk about loving our enemies. And the reason I wanted to talk about this topic is because I'm sure we all can probably name a few people in our lives that we consider our enemies. People that we don't like, people that may try to taunt us, people that say mean things to us. Basically, people that we just don't get along with. And I just think it's important to talk about this topic because since we all probably know a few people in our lives that are like that, it's important to know how to deal with those kind of people and possibly make a difference in their lives. I think the first thing to remember when we're trying to love our enemies is just remember the fact that they might come from a background which is very painful. Some people grow up in homes where they're beaten or they're abused by mean language, or they've just been affected by so many terrible events. And some people don't know how to deal with these things at a very young age, and then they take out their anger on other people. I think it's important to remember that because I know a lot of us don't grow up in that kind of family. I know I didn't, but there are some people who do grow up in an unhappy environment. And while we're dealing with people who are our enemies and people who may come from a bad background, I think it's important to be kinder to our enemies, as hard as that may be, because sometimes that's what an enemy needs. Some enemies that we know don't really know kindness from a lot of people, because they've grown up in a terrible environment, and some of our enemies may believe that a majority of the people in the world are mean and arrogant and don't have any feelings for anybody. But there are some of us who do care for others. And when we come across somebody who we consider an enemy, it can be so important when we show kindness to them, because the kindness that we show to an enemy of ours could possibly change that person's life. Now, it doesn't work for every single enemy of ours. I'm not going to say who, but I can think of at least two people from high school that I just never seemed to get along with after a certain point. I tried to show them kindness, but I could just never get along with them. However, I can name a handful of people that I used to consider an enemy of mine, but are now no longer an enemy of mine because I showed them kindness. I tried to talk to them as best as I could, and I just tried to be their friend, as hard as that was. I also think it's important to remember when we're talking to somebody that we consider an enemy of ours is that we need to have thick skin. Why? Well, this is because when we're talking to an enemy of ours, they may say something to us which could hurt our feelings. They may not mean to say that, but that possibility is there, that an enemy could say something to us which could hit us personally. Sometimes when that happens, we just have to keep up our guard and not let it get to us, because sometimes when we do let personal things get to us, we tend to retaliate to the other person who said something mean to us, and then it can result in an argument. and then bam, nobody's loving anybody. Also, when you're talking to an enemy, I would say try to find something that you two have in common. Maybe it's a favorite hobby or a favorite song, favorite type of music. It may take a little while, but if you can find something you have in common with an enemy of yours, and over time you two start to talk about it, and you can both start to talk about how much you appreciate that thing you have in common, that could help. Because whenever you have something in common with somebody else, there's a good chance that you two will want to talk about it and just sing the compliments of whatever that thing is. I realize that loving our enemies is not the easiest thing to do. And as I said earlier, there is a good chance that we are not going to be able to get along with every single enemy that we come across. However, if we show an enemy kindness, which is something that they may not be used to, that might just change that person's life for the better. I would say give it a try, and definitely remember the advice I talked about in this video. Keep your guard up, possibly look for something that you and an enemy have in common. Try not to retaliate, and just try to be as kind as you can to an enemy, and see what happens. I definitely hope this word of advice video will come in handy, and come back for another video.